I'm an alcoholic. My name is Jared.
Hi, Jared. Whatever makes you comfortable.
Thanks, AJ, for asking me to speak. Welcome to anybody who's new or coming back. Anybody who's new to Big Book, visiting from out of town, wondering what's with this meeting format. Welcome to anybody with time who's hurting, who feels like a newcomer. Welcome. So I was instructed to read a little red thing, told me not to tell a drunkalog, I won't do that. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous because I could not stop drinking and using drugs. That's why I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't come because it was a good idea. I didn't come seeking a spiritual experience. I certainly didn't come to help other people. I crashed and burned. I was trying not to drink, and I was failing not to drink. And so in lieu of that drunkalog, I want to describe first how I was 12-stepped, and then talk about how that experience informs how I practice my 12-step, the first half of the 12-step. So as I said, I was crashing and burning, and a woman that I worked with, she would say to me, for 3 years she said that she would say, so she was clean in Narcotics Anonymous, but she would say, I'm clean in Narcotics Anonymous. I hear there is an AA meeting on Park Street. So I'm from Boston, and that's where I work and live. And so she would say, I hear there's a meeting on Park Street. I encourage you to check it out. And so I'd come in with the black guy, and she'd say, I'm clean in Narcotics Anonymous, and I hear there's a meeting on Park Street. I encourage you to check it out. And so for 3 years she said that, and it had been 25 years, but after 3 years crashing and burning, I knew where to go. So I don't know if I would have known where to go if it were not for that woman's name, Emily S. She celebrated 20 years recently. Thank goodness. So when I finally did go to that meeting, there were men there. And so it was an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I still go to open meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm 35 years old. So my story is different from a lot of the stories that I hear in Big Book Step Study. My story is that I came here, but for the grace of God, the message that I heard that appealed to me, the message of depth and weight, it was the message of Big Book Step Study. I didn't know that as a newcomer, but those were the men that I was attracted to. And but for the grace of God, 25 years old, I started this process. But I went to an open meeting, and there were men sharing from the podium, and one after the other I identified with these men. And when I approached one of those men after the meeting, he put his arm around me and said, we're going to go to a meeting on Saturday. And that meeting that he took me to was a Big Book meeting in Charlestown. And we read There Is a Solution. We read There Is a Solution. And I don't remember anything. It was my second meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and but what I do remember is this, and so I want to read from a part of the book. So this was my experience being 12-stepped, and this is from that chapter, There Is a Solution. It's uncanny. My experience is uncanny. I celebrated 10 years last week, and my experience in AA has been one miracle after another. One synchronistic, serendipitous, one uncanny experience after another. And I trust that's my higher power acting in working in my life. And so we went to that Big Book meeting in Charlestown. After the meeting, I'm shaking like a leaf, and I sat in the car with this guy, and so I'm going to read this. It says, so this is a description of, Michael G was his name. He told me a story, right? And he said, and it says that the man who is making the approach has had the same difficulty, that he obviously knows what he is talking about, that his whole deportment shouts at the new prospect that he is a man with a real answer, that he has no attitude of holier than thou, nothing whatever except the sincere desire to be helpful, that there are no fees to pay, no axes to grind, no people to please, no lectures to be endured. These are the conditions we have found most effective. And that was my experience sitting in that car. Michael G. kept saying, he referred to the brutality of alcoholism. And I identified with that. And he said, maybe you're not an alcoholic, Jared. Maybe you're not an alcoholic, but he would share his experience with me. And I wanted to be nothing more. Like, I never wanted to be anything more than I wanted to be an alcoholic in that car. I did not want to drink and use drugs anymore. I could not drink and use drugs. And here was a man that friggin' shouted. He kept talking about inner peace. What the hell is that? I had no idea what that was, inner peace. But I wanted what Michael had. I could just tell it was energetic. It wasn't necessarily the words that Michael was telling me. Michael was twice my age, and he only had 2 years of sobriety, Michael. But he had that. I could tell that he had inner peace, and I certainly did not. Michael did not become my sponsor. There was another man in Alcoholics Anonymous. His name was John L. He had more of a conventional big book story, which is to say he was sober for 25 years, wanted to kill himself, and then he found a process, and this man was transformed. This man was friggin' transformed, and his message really appealed to me, and I asked him to help, and so I'd meet with John once a week, and John took me through the process. I've been through the process as it's laid out in the book. Big Book Step Study sponsor, higher power, and meetings like this one. I practice steps 10, 11, and 12. And, today I help other guys. Before I took my third step, I'm going to try to remember these 3 questions John asked. Are you willing to go to any lengths to stay sober? Are you willing to take direction? And are you willing to help the next guy? And, I just said yes because I just wanted to move on and I didn't want to drink and use drugs. But, that's what I asked my guys today. My experience is different from, I cannot believe that there was a time, A Vision for You is another chapter about service and how service grew Alcoholics Anonymous, or one man service, one man trying to stay sober, grew Alcoholics Anonymous. I cannot imagine having to pick up the phone, call a minister, ask for a drunk, go to the drunk tank, find a drunk, get beat up by the drunk, friggin' befriend the drunk's wife. Like, I cannot imagine that stuff. I just go to AA meetings. So the first part of my 12-step is simply showing up to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. And on the one hand, I need to go to AA for me, but on the other hand, I'm there to help the new person. And I try to say hello to at least one person. Not somebody that I know, somebody that I do not know, or a newcomer at every meeting that I go to, just hello. So that's the first thing, it's just being there, showing up to Alcoholics Anonymous. And so that means open AA, that means big book meetings. I go to 7 meetings a week. I'm a friggin' nut. Like, I need this stuff more after 10 years than I did after 24 hours. So I go to meetings, I'm just there. And, I don't chase guys. So, I got sober in Boston. There were a lot of young people there, and it was very competitive. So there'd be, say, 30 people at the meeting, and if one guy raised his hand and said he was new, then 25 friggin' guys would try to talk to that one newcomer after the meeting, and we were all trying to get as many sponsees as possible. And, I'm grateful on the one hand that was the culture, that there was a culture of, trying to help the newcomer. But my approach is less intense today, and so when somebody does say that he's new, I try to say hello, and I get his number, and I call him. I don't wait for him to call me. I call him, but I do wait for the guy to ask me for help. So I do not say, would you like me to be your sponsor? I think it's very important. I mean, it was my experience that I needed to learn to ask for help when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I still, after 10 years, I have a very hard time asking for help, but I need to ask for help. And when the guy finally does ask me for help, I do exactly, the book describes the first meeting. So I sit down with the guy and I say, what's your story? Why'd you come to Alcoholics Anonymous? And I listen to his story, I share my story, and, I don't beat around the bush. So if he expresses resistance to God, I tell him, good luck. I tell him, this is a friggin' spiritual program. I don't say get lost, but I'm not gonna, I say either try the 12 steps and have an experience or find a different sponsor. So that's first things first, because, I grew up Roman Catholic. I'm no longer Roman Catholic, but I'm friggin' Alcoholics Anonymous. That's what I am. And the book tells me that, the great fact is that God, my Creator, has entered into my heart and friggin' does for me what I cannot do for myself. That's unequivocal. That's there's no two ways about that. So that's something I had to learn. I used to say to guys, well, just try. No longer. So I propose a Nike program. Friggin' just do it and then tell me what you think afterward. And and so this is what I'm trying to do these days is, I've worked with a lot of guys, and my stats are terrible. So volume, I probably worked with over 100 guys, but, and some people say exit 4 or exit 9. I have worked with guys that have left it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And, I recently had a guy who started making amends and then drank. And I didn't know what to do. I just want to reread that first paragraph. Practical experience. So my experience, Jared's experience, is that nothing will so much ensure my immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. And so I haven't drank, and there was nothing. So I still don't know, what God wants me to do for work, and I'm still single, and I don't own a house, and there is one thing in my life that I believe in. I'd friggin' die for it, and it's Alcoholics Anonymous. It's that God got me sober to help the next guy in Alcoholics Anonymous, and God will get that guy sober to help the next guy in Alcoholics Anonymous. And you know, so my sister lives in Auburn, and whenever I need to come and visit my sister, I bitch and moan, I kick and scream. I'm like, oh, I don't want to drive out to Worcester. No, it's so far. Why did she move out of Brighton? But when AJ asked me to come out here and speak at this meeting, I was like, hell yeah, I'll drive out to Worcester. I feel kind of sad about it. I love my sister, but I suppose I love Alcoholics Anonymous more. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't have a sister if I didn't have Alcoholics Anonymous. So, I mean, you guys, I mean, maybe you're new. If you're new, welcome. Keep reading, keep writing, keep making amends, keep doing whatever you're doing. And, I trust. I mean, I promise my guys, but I trust that it'll work for you. That's all. Thanks.